Ik aya yok satini iltakat yuhan zoom kakoi ohan yayagi dech iti asan dechak dech yagi dakun yagi akwan kach akwan ye tiiku ushkanach kachtu da ada itr yayagi play daku satan ya akwan anikak achtu yik ada one kanins kwa gwal kun Sunday sak shui wel kleich dis anach kleich gedeen to satin glade kleich glade ya wait de yach kat de yich chu ya a clean khu a katase u a de atvus khu ya we ich kach kat glade ye awa ya achgeti kushuk ka jin kat katay dakhadushu o has to kataku ya one qanins qanakh just the cut ye de aya khuskhut we atwud tqukhu atyikt ye awa ashhaskul chait gwal atleich gwal ekhasku asagachtisa us gush at gwal ye aqawe ya achtuasugu yuk atangi owe kwa ahi dagun wuch itr yuk atang ye khoji de kayi shahid achtuasugu kwa ahi aqa kwal wuchin yuk agachtutla atawe ada ade ya yuk atutla atkiya ya yuk atangi wasa ade wuch katijel aya wuch itr yuk atang lingit inach Gulchish yak ti Johan Gulchish. Goud de hit. Ni to I guess go ye watani klingit khinach. Yi ideka kwaha. You go aya Juan hit wasaka kwati. Okay. So we're gonna start adjusting things a little bit, and what we will do is I'll continue to open the class with just like sharing some thoughts and Tlingit, but then I'll say maybe if you want to talk, it'll be okay. So if you want to bring some things, some ideas, but also if you want to bring some questions, like how would we talk about this thing? How do we put this sentence like that? So today, I would like to see some of and hear some of the sentences that you wrote. You wrote 4 of them. Picked a couple sentences, maybe from a speech and a story. And today is the day. So the rent is due, or whatever. Goud Kaudikit Atkuaha. The time. Goud Kaudikit means like the hand has struck the clock. And then atkuaha means the time has come. So pick your phrase. Now it's your turn. So we do have a sheet where we put these things up. And we're going to pull that open. Looks like a few people did them. And then others will have a chance. I will put the link in the chat. It looks like I already have Teshwudisku Nukshiyan is already there. Teshwudisku. What would that be? Teshwudisku Nukshiyan.
Tesh is negative. Nukshiyan is meek.
Yeah, okay.
But I'm not too familiar with the middle term.
Okay. Teshwudisku. Well, it'd be Teshwudisku. And I guess to get there, let's take a look at what this would look like. So we have Teshwudisku. And then we have, let me see something. And then I think I might switch my font to this one, just because there's some letters that tend to run together, like a F especially. So Keshwadisku. And then we do have Nukshiyan, which we could also have Shukshiyan. And then we have Keshwadisku. It's basically turning this verb into an adjective. So, any predictions on what this might be? Do you want to see the positive version of it? Oops. Hold on. My fingers were all off. What about that? What might be throwing us off is this right here.
That reminds me of like to know.
That is correct. Yisaku. Right. So we also
Maybe they don't know it's.
so we could
They
say
don't know.
Hwasaku.
Well, that's Tlashwasaku or Tlashawusku. So never mind.
Utusaku. Yisaku. Yisaku. Ausaku. Or Umsaku. Hasausaku. And Hasamsaku. So as we move through these, let's see. I'm gonna do this much LBOs. Okay, I think you can see them all now. So Hwasaku, how would we translate that one?
I know it.
I know it. Utusaku. We know it.
Okay.
And we'll do all these. Like you will recognize these instantly at some
You know it. We know it.
well, we already did we.
Oh, we. Oh, excuse me. You all know it.
You all.
They know it. What's up? We like all of us? I know we already did. We know it, but
But we go I, we, you, y'all, they.
They all
They all.
know it.
This is going to be my recommendation for how to take care of the pronouns. And so because Tlingit does not have gender in the third person pronoun, I am going to suggest going with they all, them all. Some people really don't like that, but I think it works pretty well. So what about this last one? Now we get the duh.
So people know it.
People know it. And you could also say it is known. Right, so that's kind of how I think English tends to take care of something like this. It's just sort of like just removing the subject. So you can have like no subject there in English, and you know that's one way you can sort of get out of the accountability, right? Where'd my donut go, man? It was eaten, right? All these crumbs on your face, right? Or you know, kids do it a lot. They're like, oh, it broke. Like it just broke, like on something. Okay. So now this is a preview of what happens when it goes negative. You have to change some things, right? You just have to. You can't just put clash in front of it. Like that's step one, but clash is going to trigger a couple of different things. So one is if we look at this, we got si, 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 zi. All of those are plus I classifiers. When it goes plus I, that means we're saying either it happened or it's potentially going to happen. Those are the two things, right? It's most commonly it happened, it became that way. So it can, so now it must revert back to its minus I form. So that this will have to change. And then this will also have to change. And it's going to go to k. It has to go short and high. And all this stuff is predictable, but the stage that we're in right now, all we're doing is just sort of watching it, right? So we can actually just copy and paste. We say watusaku, klesh watusaku. Because Tlingit has a lot, whoa, no, what did I think of? Tlingit has a lot of things involved, but it still remains very predictable. Like once you start seeing the patterns, siku is changing to saku. Okay, so klesh saku. And then we're going to have klesh. And then this one, you can have two options, ausaku, saku, right? So that would be for mostly inland speakers. There used to be some speakers in Klukwan that would say that. There used to be actually some speakers in Angoon who would say that. But once it goes negative, you only have one option. And it's going to look like this. So, and then I think it. So one of the things that you will learn is this letter A in the classifier, except for da. So for sa, sha, and sha. If the perfective marker touches it, there's nothing in between it, it'll cause that letter A to fall out. It'll just go away, it'll vanish. So that's why you say kesh awasku. And then we'll add don't to all of these. Okay, so then the same thing will happen here. So we'll say kesh has, then we'll just copy this whole thing, awasku. And then we would have kesh w dus ku. So then you would say don't. And then let's say, I don't know, we don't know, you don't know, y'all don't know. They don't know, they all don't know. People don't know it. It is not known. So that fourth one, right? That fourth person is a little tricky in terms of how it works, both for objects and subjects. It kind of depends on context, kind of depends on the verb. So like, we do a whole other example, which we'll do later with the cha verb. So chacha, tucha, yicha, yecha, hasacha, or acha, hasacha, and then you have ducha. And so ducha, you could say duchai atege, is it edible? Do people eat it, right? So in this case, you have kesh wudisku, people don't know it, it is not known. So coming back up, we have kesh wudisku nukshiyan, which is the unknown mink. Because someone was an anonymous mink in the Google sheet. So then it sent me on this huge tangent, which gives everyone time to put their sentences into the Google sheet. So any questions, thoughts on any of this stuff or any of the questions or the sentence you have put together?
One of my sentences that I wrote was, I don't know if I wrote it down right, and I feel like we went over it, so I feel kind of bad asking, but I don't know anything.
Oh, well, you'd usually say tesh da sa wasaka.
Oh,
You would end up saying, I don't know anything. This is technically, I think, how it translates, because the verb here goes negative, right? So if you had some negative form of a verb, you can have this. So you can say, tesh da sa wacha. I didn't eat anything, right? So there's different verbs that you can use. Any other?
Yeah. This is a can of worms, so we don't have to fully open it, but I got like stuck trying to translate a prepositional phrase. I tried it so many different ways, trying to figure out what you do with the verb, and then was like, well, it's not really a verb in this sense because it's part of a prepositional phrase. And I was just like, I kind of dug through the books that I have, and I just really, I guess I could use some guidance on where to go specifically for discussion of how we handle prepositional phrases.
And what is it?
To water.
Oh, I lost sound.
Sorry. We gave you the chance. So the prepositional phrase is to water the plants. So I was like trying to get to watering with like the verb of to water or to make wet the plant. And I just like couldn't, I don't know, just, I mean, I had a lot of fun trying.
So that too, like, is it tied to something else? Are there two sentences that kind of go together?
Yeah, so it's two sentences. The first one is, we gave you the chance to water the plants.
So
yeah.
In Tlingit, that would not be a directional term. So the way that Tlingit takes care of that, like, so there's a whole bunch of things like that sort of to, I could be like, I came here to eat donuts. I went there to speak to the person, right? So for that, Tlingit does not look at something like the word to, like it would want towards, and so Tlingit would think of that really differently. And so this
explains why I couldn't find it.
Yeah, so this is an advanced, and so there's all kinds of things in Tlingit where you run into it where it's easy to do, but like, for example, okay, we're gonna have to consult. We'll have to consult the book. I'll just show you an example and then say, don't do it yet. Like, there's all kinds of things for Tlingit where it's like, this is how you do it, but don't do it yet. So if we go and we look at, we'll go look at ha, to eat. So if we look up this verb ha, and this is to eat something, which would just mean like to eat, like the difference between here is the command form for this would be eat it, like eat your broccoli, eat that thing. But this would be like someone's hungry, you're like, well, eat something. So it would be eat something literally, but we usually translate it just as eat. So we're going to use this verb with at in front of it. And what we're going to look up here is what we call the hortative mode. So these are different, we call these different modes, perfective, future, right? And the hortative means let. So let me do it, let us do it. And so, for example, and let them do it. These are used a lot for what would end up being like plural commands. Let's go, nach tu ad. That's a hortative verb. That's probably the most common use of a hortative verb, is to say, let's do the thing. Let's eat. Let's, at-katucha, let's eat, right? But if you took this one, at-kacha, okay, so we just look at that. Don't worry, there's some different parts that are in there. I wouldn't suggest, you can read it in S'eek if you want to. You're gonna get the conjugation prefix and ka. You'll get both of those. That's why you got nachtu, naqatu becomes nachtu. But atkacha, and then we'll paste this over here. So atkacha, which is let me eat. But if you wanted to say, I came here to eat. So that too, there's another way you could say that. So you could do it, right? I came here so I could eat. So I would say Haa Atx. Then I would paste this, but it would be exactly like that hortative, but I would add the letter T at the end. And because this ends with a vowel, it would go like this. Haa Atx. I came here so I could eat. As far as like we gave you a chance to water the plant, you'd probably end up saying, we told you, we instructed you to do it. So it would probably just end up with having a slightly different verb, potentially, because like gave you the chance. We looked to see if you would do it, those types of things.
Finish cheese.
Oh. Okay. Hold on one second. I gotta send my kid downstairs. Okay. Any other questions? And then we can take a look at these, like, and so as you continue constructing sentences, it's always a balancing act, trying things that are a little bit difficult, and then also, you know, trying things that are a little bit easier. And then sometimes like you might not push yourself if you're always just writing sentences that you know how to write. But then sometimes you're going to encounter things that end up being complex, which is totally fine. Just to say like, oh yeah, that's a really complicated thing, and Lingi thinks about it differently. So, okay. We ready to look at them? How exciting. It's finally happening. Okay. And so I'm not going to give any live feedback, but I might take a look at these and make some notes right over here, just so we can sort of, you could pop in there later and take a look at it and see. And if you have any questions, certainly ask about them. Who wants to go first?
Yaruchat.
Oh.
Yanik.
Oh, go ahead, Juan.
Hopefully if this makes speaking make it easier. Just read all four aloud.
Yes, please.
Chivella Radovos Yuduasak Aketli Kliryagi Kliryat Dazaka E Kuatin Yidat Yak Yayati Klektu Ink Yayuti Du Gs Aketli Kudas Why Kusihan Ayah Kusihan yes Johan Du Kudasi Kade Kashid.
Okay. Geez, playing. Okay. Yeah. If you got any thoughts and questions, you can ask them. Otherwise, we can go on to the next.
Yeah, so I did have questions on, I guess this was kind of related to the person. I don't know if this is a proposition, but using the like GS, like if that was like correct for like saying like for her.
Yes, right. So like, I cook this for them. I bought this for them. Yeah, that yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Good. That's And then you might do ach keitli jis kudats kho'u, because it could almost sound like for them, some other third person, I bought my dog's shirt.
Sonny Hust.
You paid your dog for the shirt and then gave it to them. You could almost read that.
Hey.
And then if saying that she doesn't live in Anchorage anymore, with the class, did I need to change is ute the correct one to use? Is that the negative version of yate?
Yes, but you wouldn't really need the duh. You could just say Tesh Anchorage ye ute.
Goodness, sheesh.
Okay. Adu itaka kwaha.
I'll go.
Sheesh.
Koch is in nuj S'eek you aayí is in nuj ad tuadach ka Saknain to use khasa eight at khasa ini guk hashagach in.
Okay. Any thoughts or questions? Questions you might have?
I think I was plunging in over my head. But
This you could throw the ha outside and could ha guch shakach. That would be fine. But yeah, this is great. I mean, you're supposed to go just a little bit farther than you're comfortable with, so it's totally fine. Okay, sheesh. And there's like, we haven't done futures, we haven't done perfectives, like where does the pronoun go, and what are the things that happen, and those are some things that we'll talk about. So yeah, don't worry about it at all. Okay, sheesh.
Chat. Khune. Okay. I had the same question Rasha did, and yeah, so I looked for some other examples, but I'm not entirely sure. So yeah, and what you gave a few minutes ago was a different example, so I'd appreciate your feedback on this, but I'll read my sentences first.
Okay.
Ch'ak hlatzin kahas wudi shuch kwasiku sandi kach yi di shuch kwasiku yi tuwasigu klech gach yi de shuchi ziyagin yagi gagi da shuch. So long ago, this evolved out of a conversation I had with my kids, as you can probably tell. People bathed in the sea for strength. I know you bathed a week ago. I know you don't want to take a bath. And that's right there where English has what I think is the infinitive verb form, using the to, which is confusing because it's a preposition. And I couldn't find any equivalent in Tlingit. Some languages seem to have a separate verb form for that role, but I couldn't find it in Tlingit. So, except looking at an example of where people say something in Hatuwinagu, yes, I want to speak.
Yeah, and so like sometimes Tlingit doesn't even need any sort of to word in there, right? Like as far as how do you tie things, and so this one would fall under, and so for Lingi, you gotta think of the logic, like, did you do this verb so that this other verb could happen? And if so, that falls under that last one that we looked at, which technically is called purposive, which is very interesting. But it means so that, right? I did this so that this could happen. You did this so you could do that. This one is a dependent clause. So it's like, it's this thing, that, or to. There's a whole bunch of linking words that English would use. The Tlingit, it's like, don't need them. Just like, that's a good to see you. There's a to in there. But Tlingit's like, nah, just smush them up. That's all you need to do. So let me show you the shortcut for this one. So here's yi de shuch, right? You all took a bath, right? And a long time ago, this was bathing for strength. Now it works just fine for like taking a bath to clean your body, right? So we go back to the list and we're gonna go up this time for shuch. Close that. And we'll scroll up. Oh, we'll close this. We're gonna start closing our verbs. So now we get down to shuch, to bathe. So the shortcut to tie two verbs together. So huasaku is on there, right? I know. And now to put the second one in there, don't worry about the meaning. This is just how it works, right?
Okay.
We're going to look at the negative perfective, which means didn't happen. And then we're going to have yi da shuch. So we're going to copy that. We're going to ignore the klesh. Don't worry about the klesh. And so here, I'll put it right next to it. It's going to say yi da shuch, right? And so in this case, what the next step to finalize it is we're going to add the letter, we're going to add a suffix on there, exactly like that possessive suffix that we learned a while ago. So this should be a high-toned I, but that is going to trigger one additional change. Anybody know what that other change is going to be?
Will something shrink or contract or
No,
no? Okay.
but you do have a vowel on this side and a vowel on that side, which means vocal cord ch. And the CH has no vocal cords. So it's too awkward to try and say yi da shuch I. So instead, Tlingit says, oh, we have a vocalized version of the CH, which is a J. So it will turn into a J. So huasaku. And then I would probably say, you could either say kleya sandechak, the other week, or you could say kech sandechak shuwahich. 1 week has passed, yi deshuji, when you bathe. The rough translation of this mode, when you look up the negative perfective and throw the I or the U onto it, is sort of like when that thing happened, roughly.
Okay.
So then here, huasaku, and in this case, what would go negative here for, instead of saying you want to not take a bath, you would say you don't want to take a bath. Huasaku kesh ituwa ushku. And then you would grab this one. So this can also work for futures. So in this case, you would go back to here, you would look up the positive future, and then you would copy this back to your list. And I'd say huasaku kesh yi tuwa ushku. And then that would get, and then you would have this one, and you'd have so same thing.
So
You don't want to take a bath.
okay, so put the negative with the desire.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So yeah, instead of like want to not, you say
Yeah.
want to do. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. Goodness, geez.
And in this case, you would say tlel, yi tuwa.
Thanks. I had a hard time trying to decide logically where to put that in. Yeah. Didn't
It's
get
just, once you start mapping out those patterns, then you tend to just remember them, right? It's like, okay, it's this way in English, what's that way in Tlingit?
Mhm.
Okay,
Thanks. Gonna choose.
who wants to go next?
Haa
Okay,
Haa Wus I'ik Dayan Uaha Akshat Tlaik Haa Shawahik Ye Yachsaka Ich Kat Saknain Kukwatus Ye Hat Yalsaka Ha Suach Idyan Uaha Yidat Ye Yachwasaka.
okay, gonna cheese. Okay. Yeah, these are great. The only thing I might suggest is on the English, this would be said to her. So that's
Okay.
because ye yawaka or ye yahwaka would be I said. Ye yawsaka, I said to them. So that
Okay.
those are really good to learn how to use. Ye yawaka, they said this thing. Ye ayawsaka, they said this thing to them. And so it ends up putting an object pronoun in there, and that's who had it said to them.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
That's what I was trying to work on, was the like they asked me, I said to them. So,
Okay.
thank you.
And then just for word order, I would probably say right. And so, but these are things like they can be moved around, right? Okay. Good cheese. Do eat sakakwaha.
Cut. At Akhsani Dushat. Una Achwe. Lu Shagay. Kesh Ushke. Akhsani Has. Kiden. Has Ausina At Kliat. Du Kursi Ausihan. Tuul Anen. Nijin Achat. Kesh Adu Sa Kesh Utusaku Hun Gao Ha Jiwu. And I was looking for another thing and I found the Nijin, which is like always used to. So I think I would just cut out the cha before that.
Yeah, well, great sentences and igual one. Yeah, so those work really well together. So if you're going to use chaklak, there needs to be some repetitive thing on there. But if you have a repetitive thing, you don't need to have chaklak. But if you put them both together, then it's like very much you're saying it is always like that, or it always used to be like that. And then if you say tu which anen, they used to be kind. But if you say ni jin, they're kind of doubling up. So you could say chatak tuch an ni jin. So then you don't need, because this has a decessive on it. So this decessive is a in or a un. And it means used to be, but not anymore. And so it's popping up on the verb and on this. It's like an auxiliary. It's a post verb thing. And so niche or nooch is the positive form. If you're from Cake or Southern Tlingit or from Teslin or maybe Carcross, you'd probably say niche. Everywhere else, you'd probably say nooch or nooch. So you could say nugin if you're, and it depends on where you're from or what kind of dialect you're trying to speak. And then here's another one where we can use that that example where you could just say kesh wudisku. And that goes right to nobody knows. So instead of constructing like the ja adu sa type of thing, you say that's how the magic of the fourth person in Tlingit. It does so much work for us. And you'll see it. It's like one of those things. Once you learn it, you'll start seeing it all over the place. Like there it is, there it is, there it is. So kleshwudisku kun gao. And then once you start the question marker, you got to throw the sa in there. Kun gao sa. Hajiwu.
Okay. Good.
Okay.
Sheesh.
Kecha, hajish.
One more question, and with things like cancer, like does your brain or does your body part have it, or would you do it? Would you flip the construction of like tlagay, shugo?
You could, I think you could probably do it either way, but I would probably say tlaqayi tu uqu, or else it sounds like something is dripping because it means to drip. It sounds like it's dripping off the brain. And I would say tlaqayi tu uqu.
Okay. Good enough. Sheesh.
Echa, sheesh. I do eat waha. These are all very good. Y'all are doing amazing. I knew you would do amazing. Kwasaku wasa ya yejini. I thought I
I'll
froze.
go.
Okay.
Okay. Du tat ke ach would get kitchen day ke how good in how was the ta instant kakwe akade yach was the ha. The only question I really had is I couldn't find a verb for mixing or brewing. So if you said you're having coffee, does that imply that you're brewing or mixing, I guess?
Yeah, the coffee is a good one because I've always heard just like cooking, like
Mhm.
aayí. It's like, yeah, I get it. You just use this sort of generic cooking verb. But if you were using, like, if you're really specifying, like, and you could probably call it kahwe kadunja if it was instant coffee because it is like a dust, you know.
Mhm.
And then we'll go to the yellow book, and this will give us our big. Yeah, because mixing is a tricky. There's a few verbs I think that are just kind of a little bit mysterious, and that's one of them. Oh, what am I doing? Oh, I'm searching for something.
Because I saw like kahin, it's usually implied something's mixed, but I didn't know if that was right to use here.
Yeah, I think that would be to water it, or to add water to it, to mix water in with it. So what you end up with is you're gonna have whoosh hu. So there's a couple of things like mixing and trading that I think are really interesting in Tlingit. So trading, you end up with whoosh to seichen. Here you get whoosh hu, which means to be among together, right? Among together. I don't know how you would do it. There's no verb in there really. So I guess together among. But then you're gonna have a verb. So jakawati, it sounds to me like you're mixing it with a stick or some sort of stick-like object. So for coffee, I think that one would work really well. So you could say, wushut jakawati. I mixed the coffee. Kahwe wushut jakawati. This one is ye ausene, which means just to generally do it. So it's not specifying, there's no stick-like thing. It's just, that could have been with their hands. That could have been just shaking it. There could have been all kinds of ways that would happen. So this verb really means just they did it or they fixed it. And then we get jakawa ha, which is slightly different than jakawa ti. And so that sounds like instead of being with a stick or some sort of like a long spoon or something, they just generally mixed them together.
Sheesh.
Okay. Okay. I'll do itzakakwaha. Drop an apostrophe right there. What's that? Ah, I warmed it up.
I was really embarrassed because I didn't, every time I tried to figure out how to say something, I just couldn't figure it out. And I kept meaning to meet with you, Renee, but it has just been a super busy semester so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. All you're doing is
But-
just 4 sentences, so it's all good.
And I'm sitting here editing as I'm going, and I'm sitting here rereading it and being like, no, that's not right. But we already went over Dasa Hwasaku. I don't know anything. And something to this second one looks wrong because I think the color would come before or somewhere between Ku'a and Hwasaku, but Ku'a Hwasaku wa Dushiawe Iati Kwash. So like, however, I know it, that cat over there, it's like a blue jay, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And though and I didn't know all the different I get mixed up with my, what do you call it? My amounts of doubt.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I get it mixed up a lot. So however, I don't know anything maybe. I know that can't be right. All right.
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure out how to say I know that can't be right. I know you would word it different, but I just put I know that's not correct.
So yeah, I would probably a couple of things is just throw an in front of ku'a. Because ku'a shouldn't start a sentence. It's just you start with aku'a. Aku'a hwasaku we douche. And then you don't need the I.
Because it's not owned, it's just like a cat over there, that cat.
And then ishq yach uti. So this is the same thing, and it's something we just looked at today, which is like, I know this. So like to know is a verb, and if you're going to know another verb, then that verb should be in what we call the subordinate form. It's a subordinate verb. Just means it has to have you look up a negative perfective and you throw the I on there. Sometimes it's a U. So then you would have, whoa, where'd it go? But now we can copy and paste this, and you could say, okay, Hwasaku tesh ayachuti. Same thing. So ayachawe is short form for like, that is correct. Tesh ayachawe, that is incorrect. But if you want to use a verb, just like you can say tesh wasa, that's fine. But if you want to put the verb in there, tesh wasa uti, and it's like the full form. So here the same thing. You could say ayachyati, it is correct. Tesh ayach uti, it is incorrect. Hwasaku tesh ayachuti, I know it is incorrect.
Sheesh.
Oh. And then yeah, the couché is like a maybe, hopefully. And so it's like when you're saying maybe, but you're saying maybe, but I kind of think so. You
So
could
do you think that's the right amount of doubt?
I would say yechwaji would work really well for here. So you could say yechwaji saku. I suspect that I don't know anything. But now you're tying two verbs together. But you could say
I can't wait to learn verbs so I can write all of my favorite movie lines.
Oh, yay.
I can't wait to be able to just translate Nemo.
Yeah, I may have been at a S'eek once, and we did the opening line. We did like some entire scene from Cheech and Chong, Up in Smoke, and then we're at another one. We did a whole scene from Pulp Fiction, and yeah, it can get really fun. Okay. Gulchish, wukecha. Atuitsa kakwaha.
Wait.
I'll go next.
Oh.
Oh, you're ready. So Akhla khasha de ijuwu khasha itinach at yiti fakat na this with Sudah at the west. So mom, do you have scissors? I need scissors and sewing beads on an office bag. There is too much. And I actually have 2 questions. I didn't know if this was the right verb for sewing beads, like if I were beading. I couldn't find a beading specifically.
Well, this is one when it's happening right now. It likes to have. It switches to that, so it gets the suffix on there just when it's happening right now, and so
Okay.
and then that would be I am sewing, like I'm sewing a shirt, or I'm sewing. Usually, you're sewing 2 pieces of fabric together, right? But if you're beading onto it, then you throw ka in the front. Kaha pays. I'm beading.
Oh,
And that could also be embroidery, sewing on buttons. Look for that too.
oh, gonna see.
And then I would say kaha pays nak ekekwesh ka, or just that you're getting the on the bag.
Sorry, it cut out the last word. It didn't work off.
Oh, okay. So I would probably say kakakis we nak ekekwesh ka onto the bag.
Oh, okay. Sheesh.
Ah.
And then my other question was, I was trying to figure out how to say something like in the hypothetical, I guess you would say. And like, if you have scissors, this is what I would do with them. But I didn't even know how to approach that. So I just said so I just kind of like, if you have scissors, I will use them because I'm making an octopus bag.
Yeah, that would be
the deal.
It's the same verb we just used. So let's say for that one,
Okay.
Let me just add. So I would say khasha iji ye uti. And so that's one way to take care of it. Khasha iji ye uti. At kakwasha. And so that's saying it could have kind of 2 general interpretations. If you have scissors, I'll use them. When you have scissors, I'll use them.
Oh.
Just it depends on context. Because
Okay.
there are these, if you look up like to have something, or we won't look up a whole new verb, but if we just switch back to here, oops, I switch back, okay. You'll see that there is this conditional, and some people want to just sort of look that up and paste it in there, right? And they'll say, oh, when they bathed, they were whistling, right? But this isn't like that one time they did it, this other thing. This is saying like whenever they bathe, every time they bathe, this other thing. And so it's really a lot more cause and effect, conditional, pushing these things together. So don't use a conditional unless you're saying like it's some big life philosophy type of thing. So you could say like, every time they bathe, this other thing happens. They see this black bear, whatever the thing could be. But if you're just saying like a straight like when, then that one we just looked at, what is it called? Subordinative. That's good.
Okay. Cool. Sheesh. And sorry, one more question. So we were talking about the beating right now verb. Is that also what you would use when it's a current project, but it's not like I'm not actively doing it as we're talking?
Yeah, like it sort of depends. And so I would probably use that verb more for like in the act of doing it, or I'm going to sew, I was sewing, I'm sewing right now. But if you say, if you're talking about like this project you have in progress, I would switch it to the yejane verb. Then I would say, I'm working on an octopus bag, not right now, but I'm going to sew it later, right? So some of those verbs like sewing and stuff, they're very specific. And so if you're saying like, I'm working on this thing, but not this moment, then there's a couple ways you could do it. You could either start referring to it in the future, like I'm going to sew that bag later, or you say I'm working on it. Yeah.
Cool. Sheesh.
Okay. Anyone else can go?
I can go.
Sheesh.
Yidat kutan yin out gewu diga yach awuti kwa gatwashat nana out to hin kanach khan neyanach ku atu at dult ich at jit ye kat tusne.
Okay. Sheesh.
I was having trouble with both the subject and the object being things, and then having to, I didn't want to put them both at the front because I wasn't sure how you would be able to tell. And so I was using the place for the pronoun for one of the objects usually, which I wasn't sure how to do that. And then also I was wondering with the word for dipnet, if that was for all dipnets, because in the dictionary it said for Ulicon.
Oh, yeah, that it would work for any dipnet. Like you can have, like if you're, but like if it's a real little net that you use to, I guess it could work because it's all about like that kind of action, because that's how
It's the same. Yeah, like I'd see it as the same verb, but it's a different object. So I wasn't sure.
Yeah, it's just saying like, I think what it's telling you, like if you said diga, most things are going to think of like a dipnet for hooligan. But it doesn't mean that that's the only one it could be.
Yeah, and then also if you had any thoughts on how to say weir.
I think, yeah, so you've got hin nach nachen, which is like a river fence. I think that's pretty, let me see if I have anything else in my resources for weir.
Because I was thinking it would maybe make, obviously within this context, it's probably pretty obvious that it's a weir, but if you were not talking about fish, you might want to add something about fish within the word for it.
Oh, right. Okay, so let's see. There is a scope and sequence document which I will put up. This is developed by the TCLL program on what they expect their students to know. And they have it as aayí. And I'll see what else I could find with that one. And then I thought that there might be one in the Raven book. I don't see it because they were talking about, there's one story where they talk about fish and game. Charlie Joseph does. I don't think he has anything in there about a weir. I don't know. I think he just makes fun of them by saying, maybe this is the ancestor of fish and wildlife. Okay. I think is the only place that I currently see it. And then, oh, go ahead.
On the entry under the noun and the noun database combined. There's one there. Nick on. I can put it in the chat.
Okay. Yeah, so again, so we have Tlingit, and then we have, so you could do a search through this spreadsheet, or you can go over to the translation equivalent and then scroll down to the W. So it's alphabetized by column G right here. And we'll go down to weir. This is my copy and paste job that didn't work. Oh, I don't see it. Let's see if it has a weir. Oh, Katatan Kahiti.
Entry 2242. It was like line 6,000 something.
Huh. Oh, and you put it in there? Yeah. Oh, cool. Okay. Why do I not see it in there? Oh. Are you okay? Oh, there it is. Okay. Oh, you okay? Yeah, there we go. I think we should, that would be a good one to adapt. And so you've got neqan or neqan. And so sometimes there's different things you could do. You could say qayes neqan, because then you're saying it's an iron one. It's one out of metal. Maybe one way to sort of, and you can also say yidadi. So that would be the stone weir of today. I guess I would probably think more of like putting qayes in front of it. Because they're usually made out of metal. Galchish. And then coming, yin is a really good time reference, but I think it works more for like times of the day, tat yin. And so for Kutan, just throw on there. Now that's in the summertime. And then to take care of like, it caught Sakai. I think the way you would do that in Tlingit is you would say on Huashat. I caught with that. So on is a contraction. So we have in is with it, and that becomes on. So then you say, I did this thing with it. Okay. Okay, we better take 5. Cajun minutes. We'll come back. Okay. We returned. Okay, let's get back to the list. We might have a couple more who are going, 1 or 2. Let me find it. Okay.
All right, so these sentences and phrases, or sentences, I guess, that I gathered, I really gathered them. Came from, I've been asked in the past, and I've been asked more and more. I've been planning on more and more in the future to speak at ceremonial gatherings and funerals and you know, kuiks and different gatherings. And so I'm always trying to look for more kind of things in that line, I guess. So I look back to Katya, David Kadashan, Katya, you do a sauk, kliket kenach, ka yeshadi, do a sauk, you do a sauk, David Kadashan, 1968 on Huna. So he had a longer speech, and I took out 4 sentences that seemed to make sense to me, that kind of goes in order that may be helpful to use. Anyway, ach sani has awud sutlek ach kanayan tuk aya tuanuk yi shtanugu tuk hadiyatik I at aya kajik jiklidzi ye yati yi at ka kwlitz igwa aya yidat at kat audegani ku alt kushe at today wuhuguk ye yadach kawadayi kawadai saguch nachsati ye aya yi jis tuchtatan. Anyway.
Okay. Yeah, this Katya speaks from the mountaintop, that's for sure. Like really big stuff, really incredible things. When it's interesting to say like awetsu kaik achkaniyan, awutsu over there as well. My one, like the kaik achkaniyan. It's interesting because my one in-laws, but it's so like it says one, but the in-law part is plural. Tuqayatuwanuk. So the tuk is like inside, and then tuwanuk is to feel something, right? And so it's like we can really feel it. Ishtanuku tuk, what you are feeling. And so it's whenever people say stuff like this, you could also say uhan su shtutanuk. Yitanugu. We can also, and a lot of times when they're talking about this, Tanugu and Shtanugu, it's often grief. Like we're saying, you are sad, and we feel that sadness. And it's usually talking about like how direct these connections are. Seems like it's either coming this way or it has already become a difficult thing. So yatik is difficult. So you can, especially state verbs, yitik is like for something to be difficult or hard. And then you put that letter I. It works just like that relational suffix that we were talking about. So like but that one is the opposite of the tone before it. This is almost the exact same suffix, but it stays low. So you can you put it on a state verb especially, and it says difficult thing. A good thing. Shechani at a smelly thing. So it works really well to turn a verb into an adjective. This one I usually hear as kashetsikwa, and kashetsikwa means it's a sensitive subject. And so, and it depends on the context. Like, so if we're talking and I might say kashetsikwa ataya, and I might be communicating to like, it's a touchy thing. So get yourself ready. But I also might be saying, I'm going to tell you this thing. Don't tell anyone else, right? So that kashetsikwa is saying like, we have to talk about it carefully. We have to, or it could be, you can't sing this song unless there's going to be a response to it. Jiklidzi is really amazing because you put hands on it. And so now it's a difficult thing to handle. Akat atikani. So there's that one, that conditional that we were sort of looking at a little bit earlier. Like when the sun shines. Then you have a really neat, the old schoolers for Shingit, when you say guash kshe, that is saying I hope. And you could also say at achdashi, I'm hoping, and then you can have another at achdashi hatigudi, I'm hoping that you come here. But when you use guash kshe, what you should be looking at, which is, and this is another one of those things, I think it has quite a few of these things where we'll go back to this verb, back and forth to this verb list. Let's see where to go. So we'll just keep the bathing verb open. So we did this one with, so like if I said at achdashi, and then I would grab this one. At achdashi yidishuchi. I sure hope you take a bath, right? And so that would be one way to do it with at achdashi. But if you say guash kshe, then what you should go and grab is the negative, which is really interesting, right? So if you look in beginning Tlingit, I hope it is that way. They'll say guash kshe yewutik. And technically that's the prohibitive form of the verb. So if you're telling someone to not bathe, so then technically, if you're going to use this, you say, I hope that you bathe. And so it's a pretty advanced form, and you see the speaker who's using it here. It is pretty common, if you really pay attention to the way people are speaking Tlingit today, is they'll just say guash kshe, and then they'll just use the verb any old way afterwards. Guash kshe yekwati. I hope that it becomes that way, but I think it should be guash kshe yebutik, as far as like how Tlingit works classically. The other one is a two-day in going inside of it. Wuhuguk. So there it is. So wuhug would be to dry. Wuhuguk would be, you say huguk, don't dry it. So then you end up with this, what's called a prohibitive suffix, the don't do it one. But Tlingit has all kinds of these things where it's like, it doesn't matter how that thing usually works. When you put them in this combination, you end up with this type of meaning. Yiyadach, from your faces, kawada yi'ah, the ones that flowed from your faces. Nachsati is a hortative. Let it become one of these things. Saguch. So saguh is joy. Saguch nachsati. Ye ayah yijiyis tuchtatan. That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm wishing for you all. Good stuff. Okay.
Sheesh.
Ah.
Yeah, and anytime you ever think of anything, I'm often find myself that I have to be in front of groups and say lots of things, and I often don't always know what to say, and
yeah,
especially where I have to talk to the opposites and address the opposites, and I don't know, say something to them in a meaningful way, and I often, I don't know. Anyway, I always need help.
yeah. Because then there should be like metaphors, and there's certain ways to address people, and what we'll do is I'll take a little bit of time and I'll put together some examples so we could look at how they're working, and then we can sort of build off of that. Because what happens if we stop using our language, then everyone will just say, and I'm not saying that this is a bad thing or that it's wrong, but everyone will just keep saying, here's our blankets to dry your tears. Here's our blankets to dry your tears. And then if you look at the old speeches, like they were doing way more stuff than that. But then we'll just get stuck with these same 2 or 3 metaphors, where if you look at those speeches, they're always looking for new ones, and like you've got this one where the sun is shining on your faces, and then it's going to dry those tears that flow off of them. And so it's like, there's these really rich concepts that are tied in there. But I think you can also, as you're building your language skills, you can keep building your way towards these things by studying. And as you learn more and more about how the language works, you can dive into those speeches and really start to pull them apart to see the amazing things that they're doing. Okay, sheesh.
Sheesh.
Anyone else?
Hataya.
Huh.
Yet itat. Kunach kog e. Beshide yan chagut. Ye khaji. Yach tedu a sock shinge enach. Ka Statter Harbor do a sock flit ka enach. Sa ya has yanas kun. Dísi ya. Yunde kes nash et. Zedka has yanas sein. Owe kachaltin. So if we've got a second, I just had a couple of questions on that. First off, with the hasnashet, if that's the right verb for they all haul ashore. I looked in a couple places, couldn't quite find it. So some help with that would be useful. And then with the final one, chaltin, I'm watching them. I wasn't quite sure how to use the plural object for watching all of them. So I sort of just went with the singular object there.
Oh, sure. You would throw has in front of that. Has chashatin. I'm watching them. And so has can pluralize either the object or the subject, or in some cases both, right? So you would say has chashatin, I'm watching them, and then you'd say has chatlatin, they are watching me. So this, oh yeah, so this is I think that works well because it's crawling kind of on all fours for people. And yeah, this is a really good use of this for Vienna's Hun, because that's how they, like the plural, that's how they swim. And then, I think that's how you talk about them, because there's that, you could also probably go with wugut, but I'll have to find some seal walking examples. I wonder.
Okay, gonna sheesh.
Okay. You look up seal in the verb dictionary. It's a lot of seals getting eaten. It must have to do with eating them. So okay. I'll see what I can find. I'll try and look around. Okay, good cheese. Okay. So let's, anybody else? Anyone else? Okay, let's do a few of these and then we'll get back to our, a bit more on verbs, continuing to open the cans of worms. So we left off on this one. We've only got a few more left. So I need 2 readers. Who's gonna be number 2?
I'll do that.
Okay, Gook.
Gusu Paul.
Hin yugucha.
Dasaye Adane.
Sak askeu.
Wasa Aguchsani.
Aguch sachuk. Sachuk.
Sahuk. Good. Sheesh. Okay. I'll read it and you folks tell me the translation. Gusu Paul.
Where's Paul?
Hin yikuhu.
Is that into, let's see, into the water? He went into the water?
He is in the shallow water. So yik is shallow water, and then hin yiku. So if you're asking goose, you should be getting that U on there somewhere, right? Abu, shkunu, nechu, yadu, wedu, hin yiku, nadak kawu. So yik is a really interesting one because it can go to yich, and in this case it can go to yigu, but I don't think you hear that very often. But it's right here. Dasaye adane.
What is he doing there?
Yeah, not just what's he doing? Sak asqewu.
I can't. Was he gosh, I can't remember what sock is. I know it's a fish.
It is a fish.
Is that hooligan?
Yes.
Is he gill netting for hooligan, or is it?
Yeah, well, he's net fishing, you know, so that's all that says. So there could be, you can specify in different ways, like because, you know, as you know, there's several different ways to fish with a net, but in this case, it's just saying net fishing is all it's saying. That could be seining, it could be beach seining. If you look at the picture, like looks like he's beach seining, right? Wasa akuchsani. And if you were outside of Cake, and if you weren't Southern, and if you weren't from Tesson or Carcross, you might say Wasa akuchsani.
What's he netting?
Not quite. Because then you would say Dasa asqewu. What's he net fishing for?
Is that how then?
Well, it is technically a how, but think it has a few how structures that convert to what once we move into English.
What is he going to do?
What's he gonna do? Yeah, there we go. What's he gonna do? And that is how you say it. right? So, wasakakwasane. What am I gonna do? Agursahuk. Oh, we just had a hook verb just a moment ago. We're such good future predictors here. What kinds of things might you do with your sock, with your hooligan?
Make candles.
Yeah, you can make candles. Okay, yeah. That's not what he's gonna do.
I've only ever seen him pan fried.
No, yeah, that's not a frying verb. Ah, this turned into a hooligan test. Dasa hisiko sak dat. Atawi jini. What else might you do with him?
Pickle?
Is it hang them for like the oil? Like
Smoke them?
or hang? Yeah.
You would end up cooking them. Well, there's a verb for rendering, but this ain't it. There's a verb for smoking. This ain't it.
Drying?
Huh?
What, drying?
Yes. A hook. So this is wuhuk would be it dried. And then ausahuk would be somebody dried it. So this is a very common thing to have like a 0 for the thing to happen, S or L classifier for someone to do the thing. And here you've got a future. He's going to dry him. He's going to dry it. He's going to dry the hooligan. Send him over, Paul.
I don't understand.
Okay.
Wait, can I just really quickly, was that how will he dry them? Or how will he
This is
prepare them? Yeah.
It's a house structure, but once we translate it, it's what is he gonna do? That's it.
Gonna sheesh.
Does Siri chime in every class you have?
I think so. And I put it on like do not disturb.
Well, it makes me wonder what it keeps hearing every time.
Yeah, maybe. Well, it used to be Hiddy. Hiddy would sort of cue it. So I don't. But then there was a very long string of text, and she said, "I don't understand." But then I just shut it down. So she's learning. She's only an intermediate too. She's okay. Okay, I need 2 readers.
I like reading.
I will. Thank you. Gusto ishat has
Deyikte hasbuat.
dasa has adane
Tank hasain.
yan kawat gewe kle.
Ah,
Okay, gusu ishatchas. That could also be said gusu ishatchihas. So you could put a vowel in there.
where's your auntie?
Not
Where
an-
is my auntie?
Not your
Or
auntie.
yeah, your auntie. Excuse me.
Not an auntie. That would be aunt or talk.
Is it wives?
It wouldn't be wives. That would be shatchiyan or shatchihas.
So wife?
There's probably a Utah joke that could be made there, but I won't do it. Okay, what was the next? What was the other?
Sister, older sister.
Yes, it is a female's older sister. So if you identify as female, you do have, and if you have older sisters, it is shetch, and then shetchas or shetchihas. Where are your older sisters? So that's a plural. Most kinship terms plural with hus. A few of them pluralize with yun. Kaniyan, achunkiyan, chunkiyan. not sure which other ones. I know those ones. De yikde. Oh, there's another yik here. Yicking all over the place now. De yikde hasbu'at.
They went down the path.
Yes, they went into the path, which it's really interesting because of a trail, a path, a road, they are yik, which I think can challenge the English brain, because the English brain will be like, well, when you build a road, it goes up a little bit and aren't you on the road? And it's like in English, you are, sure. But in Tlingit, a road and a trail and a river all are the same sort of thing as far as how people move along in them. So they yikde, they went onto the trail. But you would probably say onto the trail once you put it into English. It's another one of those things, like the preposition games is different because we use prepositions, we use postpositions, not prepositions. And then they also just function differently. Dasa hasatane.
What are they doing?
What are they doing? So this one has at least 3 different names. And this is one of the 3. Anybody know what it is or what the other 2 names are? Another name for it is Anyanachtayak. Third name for it is Was'an Keiko.
Salmon berries.
Yes. And then Has'a'in.
They're picking them.
Yes. And so for Tlingit, picking berries is a really big deal. So there's multiple verbs for picking berries. The thing to keep in mind is a'in is picking a specific type of berries. Once you say what type they are, you should be using a'in. And a'in works really well for like all kinds of harvesting. You're gonna go get seaweed, you're gonna go, and really the verb means to put it in a container. That's really kind of what it means.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Siri and the handling, maybe it's the handling verbs. Maybe that's where Siri gets all, I don't know about these handling verbs. Okay. But then you have a verb to eat, which just means picking berries generally. We're going to pick berries. But if you say what kind of berries, then you switch it to a'in. Yen kawata ke wikek. What might you ask about the berries?
Are they ripe?
Yes. So kawata means ripe. Yun, when you put yun in front of a verb, it means to completion. So like you'd say, are they completely ripe? Right? And so there's a few different verbs that this has a lot of special meaning for. Like you could say, wune, it happened. Yun uwane, it's ready. Then you could say, going back to the ausane verb, so I could say chosane, I did it. Yun chosane, I got it ready. I finished it. Yejechwane, I worked on it. Yun yejechwane, I finished working on it. Chwacha, I ate. Yun chwacha, I finished eating it. And we go, yes. Okay, maybe one more. Need 2 readers.
Khataya.
Gook.
Gusu Wesha.
Ikte has uat.
Dasa ye has adane.
Watch. Oh dear. Watch ga has uat.
Okay, you got the best sentence of the day. Haswu. All these, there's a bunch of apostrophes there. So Okay, gusu we sha.
Where's the woman?
Women. Plural.
Women. Where are the women?
Iqte hasbuat.
They went to the beach, the shore.
Yes, they went down, and you could also say they went down to the beach, because if you're saying iqte, you're up on the inland somewhere, right? So but you could also just say they went to the beach. Dasaye hasadane.
What are they doing there?
What are they doing? Just what are they doing? There's no there. You could say you could throw that on there. Yeah. Aqachqa hasbuat. Hasbuat. Look at the picture. What do you think? One qanins. Haika we hunda ke hiti akon anikakutziti. Ya singit enach kwashiwe utlitiki haktri dake hiti. Ya hastu yukatangi po kopa. Utlitiki haktri ya hasas e akawe. One qanins hastu tuasagu wushta seichen quach Dana, what Dana, ejite haska kwati, hasu tosagu hasawa u, quachtin, talk e tik, which tik e hokli, hasashech.
Strawberries?
Shak.
Rhubarb?
Yeah, away. Yeah, away.
On the beach?
Hey, Kwasaka. I don't even know nothing about no rhubarb. It could happen.
Although I think saltwater rhubarb is something that Copa would try.
Oh, yeah, right. But most people are getting it up on the, it's usually up in the woods or something. I don't know. Hey, Kwasaka. His kadane. It doesn't taste very good to me, so I don't keep track of where it's at. The truth is out.
The sugar is so good though.
Gook. Okay, we only got 4 left. We'll do them next week. For now, it's the compressed, ongoing grammar discussion. So what we're going to do is, after we've sort of looked at a few of these things, because I think it still stays very abstract, right? As we keep looking at these things, talking about what they are, what they do, then we start going through and say, well, let's look at this one and just shift it, run it through all the options. And then if it has a subject, let's look at that one and shift it and run it through all the options. There's not very many pronouns as far as when you get into objects and subjects, especially subjects, right? Then we'll start going through and start saying, well, what happens if you start changing both at the same time? And then you keep practicing it, so you're internalizing these lists of pronouns so that you can bring them up into your mind and put them into the right spots. Then once we sort of start feeling like we've got that down, we'll move into what a perfective is. And we'll start building a perfective, build a negative perfective, build a future, build a negative future. Then you'll learn how to do that stuff. So if you looked at this verb, you could say, oh, yeyeti, yewuti, yekwati. Teshyewuti, teshyekwati, teshyeuti, right? The imperfective is a tricky one, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But for now, just sort of continuing to think about every verb, we write down a theme. The idea here is to show you all the things that are in it, because if you can get yourself to a point where if you looked at all of this information you can use that verb in any way you want to. As far as putting for person, for mode, you could shift it all over the place. You say can't be that way, was that way, won't be that way, let it be that way, it's always that way, but it hasn't been that way yet. You'll do all of those things. So to recap, you've got the preverb, and it's going to be green. In this case, it's in parentheses, which says it could be something else. And for this verb, it likes to have yay. It likes to have yay there unless something takes its place. Something takes its place. Then it takes an object. If you don't see it there, you can't add it. And if you see it there, you can't remove it. It's baked in. You have the classifier, so that says it's a zero group. So most commonly, this will just be zero or ya, zero or ya. The way I want you to think of it is zero, but if it happens, you'll change it to ya. And there's also potentials, but don't worry about that now. Just if it happens, it changes, it gets the letter I in it, except for ya. Ya's the exception. It's like, I don't have an I, I'm just ya. This is the verb root, which contains the meaning. This one is be, it's the to be verb. The one thing, as you know, we've been having this conversation today about things that work in English and how they're different in Tlingit. The being, the way that Tlingit uses being, or English uses being verbs, people will do things, they'll say some kind of verb, and then they'll say kakwati, to say like it will be that way. It's like, no, you just change that first verb, right? So they'll say shechan kakwati, it's gonna be stinky. We say ke guch shechan, and you don't need the yati verb, right? This, there's sometimes an H there, there's sometimes a little X that's talking to you about the stem variation. The stem is the vowel. Is it going to be short and high, long and high, or long and low? The number 1 tells you that there's another T out there, oops, right there. And like there's one to imitate, there's one to handle general objects. The conjugation type, you have 0, na, ga, and qa. For most verbs, like whatever it is, like this will be na all the time. All the time. And that's why you're going to say ye inati, let it be that way. That's also why you're going to say ye natich, it's always that way. That's also why you're going to say ye nqati, let it be that way. It's a state verb, so you have motion, act, event, state, position. That just tells you kind of how it behaves, right? Does it have an imperfective? What's the classifier like in the imperfective? And then we have whether the transitivity, it's already in here, but it's just, here's a little bit more information if you need help remembering. If you just see the word object there, that means it only has an object. If you see the word subject, it only has a subject. If you see the word transitive, it means it has both. And if you see impersonal, it means it doesn't have either. And remember, once it's there, you can't take it away. And if it's not there, you cannot add it. So here's another one. Ye, tu, 0, t. It's all the same, except now we've thrown k right on the front. So this verb will actually work the same, except we're going to have k right in front of it. But if you change this classifier, like if this went from 0 to S, that's a different verb. If you throw something here and throw one of these pink things on here, that's a different verb. You can't put those on there without making it a whole different verb. So the same thing, all these things are the same, but now you have this, which has meaning. Like whenever you have one of these pink things, they have meaning almost every time. So it generally refers to some given space. There's certain verbs where it's like, you just start talking about the weather. So kuati is for the weather to be a certain way. Here's another one. So now we've got a red, right? Blue, red, purple, brown. And it also has this little X. Was that little X? Anybody know what the little X means?
Always like that. It doesn't change.
Yes, it's khan. So that's actually kind of nice because you don't have to remember, oh, in the future it likes to be long and high, future negative likes to be long and low. And then for the perfective, it depends on the conjugation class. This one is like, it's khan every time, right out. So going through here, object, subject, classifier. So this one is going to be sa. That class, even though you just see the letter S, to say that classifier is sa. But if it happens, then we change it to si. So like just keep that in your mind. Like it has a natural state, classifier does. But then you can say, oh yeah, it happened. Si. Ich sechan. Ich sechan. Ishan. I don't love you. So then it goes to sa. It shows you the conjugation type, the verb type. This one is transitive. It has an object and a subject. You cannot remove them. You can't forget that they are there. Okay. 3 minutes left. Let's talk about verb type. Motion, act, event, state, position. Here they are. An act is for someone to do something. It has an imperfective, and that imperfective has a -I classifier. An event verb is for something to happen. And the biggest thing with the event verb is there is no imperfective. There's a time when it hasn't happened, and there's a time that it has happened, and there's no time in between. Sometimes you'll have a progressive, like it's in the process of happening or becoming that way. But like a good example would be for something to explode. It didn't, then it did. Okay. A state verb is for something to be a certain way. It often uses object pronouns, and then it does have an imperfective, and it is +I in the imperfective. So you have yak-a, shitzin, shitchan, yadnik. Those are all +I in the imperfective. The motion verb is the most complicated of them all. It's for something to move. It doesn't have an imperfective. It'll use a progressive imperfective like yanagut, yanashich, yanagwat. And the conjugation prefix can change. You can say hagu, that's a 0. You say wede nagu, that's an N. You could say akagagu, or you could say yagagu, that's ga. And you could say wetekagu, go down there, and that's ga. And so most commonly it's 0 or na. It's usually 0 or na, which means there's either some endpoint or there's no established endpoint, which we'll get to. And then a position verb is for something to be located in a place. So there's not very many of these. They only occur in the imperfective. Any questions about any of that? We will look at the conjugation types next week. 0, na, ga, pa. And again, like it all seems very abstract because every tlingit verb has like these 5 different things, and each of those things has like 4 different options. But once you start seeing them in action, it will start to make sense. Like all these pieces interact with each other, and you'll learn how to do it. See you on Zoom.
Finish.
Ah.
Next